this is Larry Lursey. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I do drop shadows in images. I think that with compositing, one of the things that trips people up a lot is the drop shadow. You see an image and they've either forgotten to put in a drop shadow, or it just doesn't look like a real drop shadow. And so I think that's something that is not that difficult to do. You just got to keep a few things in mind. So I kind of want to walk you through what my philosophy is on it. All right, so take an image like this where we've got a ballerina here that we've extracted, and we're going to drop her onto this background. Simple enough, but you can see we don't have a drop shadow here, so it makes it look like she's floating or jumping in the air, which isn't what we want for this particular image. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do when I work on something like this is you're going to kind of look at the lighting and try and analyze, is it hard light, soft light? In this light, it's a situation, it's a more soft light. So we don't need to have a really harsh outline shadow. It's going to be a softer type shadow. And we can see from the light pattern on her face that it's off to this side. And there's a little light peeking around here, so it's a little bit out front. So we know generally the direction of the shadow. Let me get just switch to some black here. We know generally the shadow is going in that direction. We know it's not going left or to the front or anything like that. So first thing you got to decide is where you're going. So what I'm going to do is try and build up some layers of this shadow. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to zoom in just a touch, and let me try and get my screen reconfigured up here so you can see it a little better. All right. Here we go. Okay, so we got our ballerina here. Here's my layers palette. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer in between these two. So I'm going to come down here and click new layer right there, and I want to make sure that it's between her and the background. So what that is doing when I switch to my brush here is I can do all I want and it's affecting the background, but it's not affecting her. So it's between these two layers. That's important to do. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the shadow right where the shoe meets the ground, because that's the area that you're going to have the darkest, hardest shadow, is right there, because there's absolutely no light right where the shoe's meeting, and right around the edge there's usually a dark edge. So I'm going to go ahead right now. I'm at 100% opacity. Probably drop that down just a little bit, maybe say 85, and I just want to get right around the edge like that. And it's okay if I go over the shoe because there's not really anything there. And if you mess up and go too far, just Command Z, Control Z to take it away. Just going through a few little swipes right there under the shoe to make it look right where the shoe is hitting the ground like there's a shadow, because there would be a shadow right there. Okay, and that looks pretty good. If you decide you've gone too far, you can pull the opacity down just a touch. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to bring mine down to about 87 there. That's pretty good. All right. What I usually do next is I try and think in my head with how she is, where's the basic lines going to go? I mean, this leg's going to be casting a shadow up here. This leg's going to be kind of doing one that way. We'll eventually get to the skirt up here, but I know my basic outline. So what I'm going to do with this next one is I'm going to make another layer, layer 2, a little bit bigger brush, and I'm just going to draw where I think the base of this shadow is going. I think the leg shadow would go out that way. I think this leg would cast a shadow out that way. Of course, they'd blend together where her body meets. Something out like that. Of course, this looks terrible right now. It doesn't really look like a shadow, but that's okay. Just kind of pretending that this shadow is really here. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to soft light. And right there, we've got a much better look at how things are. But I'm going to go back to, I think I liked normal better, but I'm going to take the opacity way down. Maybe something like that. So I'm down at about 30%, where it kind of looks like it's disappeared. But we can turn it off and on, you can see it. Make sense? Okay, so now let's add another layer. Layer 3. Get a little bit bigger brush, a little softer. I'm still going to stay about 85%. Make sure that I'm starting under the foot. And I'm just going to come out here like this. Do kind of a more outlined type shadow, a little bigger than where it would really be. Kind of like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to soft light and bring it way down. Probably about 27%. Again, it looks like it's gone. There it is, you can still see it. What we're doing here is we're trying to just slowly build it up in layers rather than have one big thick shadow. And it's a little more work, but ultimately it's going to look better. So let's go ahead and add another layer right in here. And again, we're kind of doing a lot of the same stuff. Looking for areas where it needs a little more. Go really dark on this one because we can always take that opacity down afterwards. So I've got that there. Let's try overlay this time maybe. No. Back to soft light. Okay. We've got to bring it way down, way down. I think we got to go even lower. Maybe about like that. Now I just want to do a little more in here. I'm going to do one more layer. I feel like this area here still looks a little too dark for where there would be shadows. Right through there. Probably soft light again and bring the opacity down. There we go. Again, looks like there's nothing there really, but you can see it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take all of these shadow layers. I'm just holding shift so I can grab all of them. Again, clicking here, hold shift to there. Then I'm going to drag it down to this folder. I'm going to create a folder called shadows. Now what this does is, let's zoom out and kind of look at the overall shot now. What I can do now is I can turn this drop shadow off and on and see the difference. And the nice thing about that is it will start showing me some areas where it's inconsistent. I feel like I need a little more here, maybe a little more up in there. Like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in one more time into this folder. I'm going to add one more layer. I'm just going to go in these areas here that I think need a little more. Here we go. Soft light down a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. You know, and there's really no limit to it. You can keep adding these layers on. You just have to keep dropping the opacity down. But you can keep adding some more if you think it needs more. Throw some more on there. Switch over to soft light. Take the opacity down. You're just slowly building up. I think that looks even better. Again, we turn it all off and on. And if you decide that it's too much, that you've made too strong of a drop shadow, you can either adjust any of those individually, or you just go to this folder here and bring that opacity down, which I think it needs. So that ends us up, as we look at it here, there she is without, there's with some shadows. Maybe even drop it down just a touch more, because I think you want it to be there, but just not glaring. And one of the things that's nice about this is, once you've done it, if you decide to change something, you decide you don't like the composition or whatever, you can select both these levels or layers. I've already got this one. I'm going to hold down shift, select that as well. Then I can move it around, and that drop shadow is going to move with it. And so move it up into here or something, depends on wherever you want to go, but that drop shadow will follow her, and you'll still have that nice fall off there right in the corner. So anyways, that's basically the things to keep in mind: where your light source is, what it's coming from, what direction it's coming from, and then just how much shadow you need, and keeping them in layers so you can build it up. And you can see it makes a huge difference from there to there, and it just takes a few minutes. So that's the basics of it. Get yourself an image and give it a shot, and you'll see that as you build up the layers on those shadows, they look more and more realistic. So I hope that helps. I will add one last thing here at the end. One thing I always do on composites like this, almost always, is going here under this icon here and click the photo filter. And I use this warming filter 85 on just about any image I do. And you can see it really ties things together by adding this kind of overall warmth to it, that it brings the background, because you've got a little bit of different with the skin tones and this wall, and even the shadows are all kind of different because they came from different places. They don't all tie in necessarily color-wise, and by kind of putting that color overlay over it, it helps them all tie in, makes it look a little more realistic. So just a little bonus tip there to keep in mind when you're doing the composites, to tie things together. But that's what I would suggest you try, and hope it works out for you. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you later.